chapter 15 a short chapter, but in chapter 14, let's remind ourselves that the giver gives Jonas a painful memory of going down the snow on a sled, but this time it's higher up. He breaks his leg, he feels the pain. He knows how tough it is. He's also given the pain of hunger for him to learn a bit more about the pain people suffered when they had a lot of people in the community. And so it's tough for Jonas to deal with all of this pain. And now he's realizing why other people don't have to have these memories, because it would be very difficult for everyone. At the end of the chapter, Gabriel, the little newborn, the new baby, isn't sleeping well, so he sleeps in Jonas's room. Jonas starts rubbing his back and realizes he's passing on a nice memory to the young boy to help him sleep. He does it again and realizes quickly that he's going to lose these memories that he likes, but he can't tell the giver, because the giver is the person giving the receiver all of these memories. Chapter 15. Jonas entered the annex room and realized immediately that it was a day when he would be sent away. The giver was rigid in his chair, his face in his hands. "I'll come back tomorrow, sir," he said quickly. Then he hesitated. "Unless maybe there's something I can do to help." The giver looked up at him, his face contorted with suffering. He's in pain. "Please," he gasped, "take some of the pain." Jonas helped him to his chair at the side of the bed. Then he quickly removed his tunic and lay face down. "Put your hands on me," he directed, aware that in such anguish the giver might need reminding. The hands came, and the pain came with them and through them. Jonas braced and got ready for himself and entered the memory which was torturing the giver. He was in a confused, noisy, foul-smelling, bad-smelling place. It was daylight early morning, and the air was thick with smoke that hung yellow and brown above the ground. Around him, everywhere, far across the expanse of what seemed to be a field, lay groaning men, dying. A wild-eyed horse, in its bridle torn and dangling, trotted frantically through the mounds of men, tossing its head, whinnying in panic. The horse stumbled finally, then fell, and did not get up. Jonas heard a voice next to him. "Water!" The voice was said in a parched, croaking whisper. He turned his head toward the voice and looked into the half-closed eyes of a boy who seemed not much older than himself, maybe 13 or 14. Dirt streaked the boy's face and his matted blonde hair. He lay sprawling, his grey uniform glistening with wet and fresh blood. The colours of the carnage were grotesquely bright. The red, the crimson wetness on the rough and dusty fabric. The ripped shreds of grass, startling green in the boy's yellow hair. So there's a young boy, a bit older than him, laying down next to him that's covered in blood and clearly dying. The boy stared at him. "Water!" he begged again. When he spoke, a new spurt of blood drenched the coarse cloth across his chest and sleeve, so the boy is coughing up blood as well. One of Jonas's arms was immobilized with pain, and he could see through his own torn sleeve something that looked like ragged flesh and a splintery bone. So he looks at himself and he sees his own bone in his arm. He tried his remaining arm and felt it move. Slowly he reached to his side, felt the metal container there and removed its cap, stopping the small motion of his hand now and then to wait for the surging pain to ease. So he picks up a container. Finally, when the container was open, he extended his arm slowly across the blood-soaked earth, inch by inch, and held it to the lips of the boy. Water trickled into the imploring mouth and down the grimy chin. So he's giving some water from a container to the boy next to him that's dying, full of blood. The boy sighed, his head fell back and his lower jaw dropping as if he was surprised by something. A dull blankness slid slowly across his eyes, the little boy. He was silent. But the noise continued all around, the cries of the hurt, wounded men, the cries begging for water and for mother and for death. Horses lying on the ground shrieked, raised their heads, and stabbed randomly toward the sky with their hooves. So it's chaos. There's dead people everywhere. People are dying around him. Horses are running around, going crazy. From the distance, Jonas could hear the thud of cannons. Overwhelmed by pain, he lay there in the fearsome stench for hours, listened to the men and animals die, and learned what warfare meant, or what a war is. Finally, when he knew that he could bear it no longer and would welcome death himself, he opened his eyes and was once again on the bed. The giver looked away, as he could not bear to see what he had done to Jonas. "Forgive me," he said. That's the end of chapter 15. So he goes to the annex, the place he has to go every day for training. The giver is in so much pain. The giver asks him to help and sends him the memory of something very painful. Now, this memory is war, a war many years ago. And there's a young boy next to him dying, about his age. He gives him water and he watches the boy die. So he's in this area where there are cannons, where there are bullets flying. He wants to die himself, but then he opens his eyes. The giver is so upset that he can't say anything else except for sorry to Jonas. That's the end of chapter 15.